Welcome back to another FPL video. Today I'll talk about the best wildcard team for Game Week 9 during the second international break of the season, and typically it's a very popular time to use a wildcard when we head into an international break. A lot of people also used it around Game Week 7 or 8. I'll be discussing some key changes actually to several positions, and also one thing I want to do is a rating your teams video. So if this video gets to over 200 likes, then we'll be doing a rating your teams video, and all you would have to do is in the comment section of this video, or maybe on Twitter, Instagram, the Discord server, you just send in your team ID, which you can find by going to the points section of the FPL website on your browser, whether it's on your laptop or your phone, tablet, etc. And the number you see in the URL will be your team ID. So you copy and paste that and you put it into the comment section or any of those other social media platforms. And you can also give a bit of context about your team and your transfer plans if you wish, but most of the details will be there for me so I can discuss your team and which transfers or moves I would make in the future, and maybe talk about the wildcard if you haven't used it already. But be sure to let me know if you have used the wildcard. That's the only real detail you definitely need to include with your team ID. But let's get straight into this video, the best 50-man squad on the wildcard. But as I've done in the last two editions, I'm going to show you several drafts, one with some key assets and one with others, because it's impossible to fit all of them in the same team and have a very balanced 15-man squad. There are four standout goalkeepers at this moment in time, and they include two budget options in Turner and Areola. So Turner has gone up in price to 4.1 million for non-owners, and Areola is still around 4.2 million. But I think they're two of the best goalkeepers in the game, and I know they're going to be a bit frustrating from time to time, and Turner beyond Game Week 9 will just be a bench option, but Areola can certainly do a very good job when West Ham's fixtures turn for the better in Game Week 10, and in most game weeks I would suggest going for Areola. Game Week 9 could be a bit different though, as I'll discuss, and heading into Game Week 8 I was actually quite set on starting Areola, but in the deadline stream I made a late change, brought Turner on, and that game ended 0-0, so I ended up making the right decision in the goalkeeper, obviously with a bit of fortune as always involved with these decisions. The other two goalkeepers I definitely think are worth mentioning are Leno and Johnston, the joint highest scoring goalkeepers in FPL so far this season, but with fixtures in mind and form, I would favour Johnston over Leno, but you have to give the German some credit, and he is right up there in the 3 or 4 best FPL goalkeepers to buy on the wildcard. Then you've got a few other alternatives here and there. I think David Raya could be a very good option, especially when Arsenal embark on a good fixture run from Game Week 10 onwards too. But the fixtures are still quite mixed for Arsenal, and whilst he's got bonus points and saves potential, I'm not so sure if I would go for him when you've got Gabriel, Saliba, possibly Ben White at the back to cover Arsenal defensively. And I think the best ways of covering Arsenal ultimately lie with Gabriel and Saliba. I have opted for a balanced defence. We've got no defensive double-ups, but there is no Kieran Trippier in this draft. And in the comment section down below, I want to see your preference in terms of this draft that we're going to show or the next one coming up. Which one do you prefer ultimately? But I've gone for Matty Cash. Aston Villa are still top of the fixture difficulty rating over the next 5 to 6 game weeks. After that, maybe between game weeks 13 and 15, you can start to sell some of these Villa assets, including Matty Cash. But before then, I still think he's got some great fixtures and some possible massive returns coming up very soon. I've also gone for Joachim Andersen, the highest scoring defender in FPL, the only one who's got more points than Kieran Trippier in that position so far, and he's gotten a few goals already this season with 2, several bonus points as well, another clean sheet over the weekend against Nottingham Forest, and he's also someone I included in my wildcard team. But you can go for Gay or Mitchell, and as you saw, Gay was the one getting maximum bonus points in Game Week 8, so I don't think there's a huge difference between the three, but Anderson has the most goal threat and bonus points potential. I've also gone for Dan Burn, and I would highly recommend having at least one Newcastle defender, and you can even go for 2, but if you were to go for that double up, then maybe in terms of replacements, you could sell Joachim Andersen to a Kieran Trippier, or even go for a Fabian Schär / Sven Botman once he returns from injury, and that could be as soon as Game Week 9. I've also gone for Gabriel Magalhaes. He's only 4.7 million. He started the season at 5, and he was also a very popular pick during pre-season, and then once he started getting benched, I put everyone off. Those that had Saliba over Gabriel were very fortunate, and now they're both starting every single game, and against Manchester City, Saliba got 7 points and Gabriel Gabriel got 8. Typically, I think Saliba's better for bonus points and also assists, but I think Gabriel is definitely the one with the most goal potential, and he also typically starts week in, week out. Let's see if that continues to be the case this season. I was already kind of, up in arms about it, the fact that Gabriel was benched at the beginning, because he is one of Arsenal's best defenders, and even Saliba looks a bit shaky when he doesn't have Gabriel right next to him. And Gabriel's expected goals and assist numbers aren't anything spectacular so far. He's offered next to no goal threat, as I'll discuss in future videos, but he's a really solid option. He's cheap, and Arsenal have some good long-term fixtures, and away from home, Arsenal can keep a clean sheet against absolutely anybody, with the possible exception of Liverpool and Manchester City. The final defender is Udogie. Whilst Pedro Porro is slightly better in FPL at the moment, there is a difference in price, and in order to stay within budget with this draft, I have gone for the cheaper alternative in Udogie, and Spurs have been more solid defensively in recent weeks. They have grinded out some results, even against Luton Town, down to 10 men, and I still like Udogie in the long term. He is 2 yellow cards away from suspension, so be careful with that. But overall, this defensive 5 is very solid, but there is a big factor missing, and that's Kieran Trippier. The shift towards Mohamed Salah is going to be just unprecedented, because he's got 3 double-digit returns in his last 4 game weeks, and he faces Everton and Nottingham Forest at home next, followed up by Luton Town away in game week 11. So Mohamed Salah is going to be a very popular captaincy choice over the coming weeks. And in terms of this debate about whether we should wildcard Salah or Trippier, I don't think that's going to be the conversation. Now it's going to be, should we go for Haaland or Kieran Trippier in our FPL teams if we are wildcarding now in game week 9, or maybe from game week 10 onwards. But Salah has some good long-term fixtures. He's fixture-proof anyway, and he's got the underlying numbers to really back up his numbers, what he's been doing so far this season. 5 goals and 4 assists, and a 15-point haul against Brighton and Hove Albion. I've also gone for a double up in Spurs offensively with Heung-min Son and Maddison, but in terms of my long-term preference, it would be Bukayo Saka over Son once he's back from injury. And in game week 10, a lot of managers will be making that move off Heung-min Son to Bukayo Saka, and Maddison could be the long-term hold. He's quite cheaper than Heung-min Son, and he's returned in every single away game so far this season. I've also gone for 2 budget midfielders here in Diaby and Pedro Neto, but later on I'll show you some alternatives if you're not able to afford this exact 50-man squad. But Diaby is there to target the fixtures. He has had a solid start to his career at Aston Villa, and he's already been showing a lot of potential from his time at Bayer Leverkusen. And Pedro Neto has 1 goal and 6 assists this season. Obviously, one of them was an own goal from Manchester City, Ruben Dias, but Pedro Neto was heavily involved, and he has been absolutely fantastic. You could make a case for Hwang Hee-chan, and they're the 2 best Wolves assets, but I would favour Pedro Neto. I think he just looks better on the eye, and not only that, he also gets 90 minutes week in, week out, which is the most important thing. Hwang Hee-chan has much more inconsistent minutes, and he rarely plays the full 90. So they're both really good options at that price point. You've also got Gordon as well, who I'll mention very soon. But I've gone for Pedro Neto here to target Bournemouth away, and then afterwards the fixtures are still fairly decent. There's some pretty tough ones in there from time to time, but Pedro Neto has been very good in all games so far, even in those that he blanked, such as Man United in game week 1. So that's the midfield 5. It's not going to be the best midfield you'll ever see, and the second draft will have more of a balance and more money invested in this position, but there are some very good budget enablers in here like Diaby and Pedro Neto. Gordon's another one that I'd highly recommend. He's now back from suspension, and you've got 3 big hitters here in Salah, Heung-min Son and Maddison, and over the coming weeks you can also add the likes of Martinelli and Bukayo Saka to this midfield 5. Despite 2 blanks in 2, and even across all competitions, Haaland blanked against Leipzig and didn't do anything against Newcastle. I don't think he played a single minute there, and it has been a while since he scored a goal, but he is still in this team, and over the next 3 game weeks he faces Brighton at home, Man United away, and Bournemouth at home. I personally think Haaland will score at least 4 goals in those fixtures, and in those home ties in particular, I think he'll go absolutely ballistic and even be the best captaincy option potentially in at least one of those game weeks. It would not surprise me if he was the best in both of those home games, and I know a lot of people are having this debate about whether Haaland is as good without Kevin De Bruyne and whether we should go without him, and I think those are all valid questions, but he's still got 8 goals in 8 games, an assist as well, and he's right up there in terms of FPL points scored. And in 2 matches this season, he scored a brace against Burnley, a 13-point haul, and and a hat-trick against Fulham. We cannot forget that. Both of them were without Kevin De Bruyne. Rodri's now back from suspension. So I think Man City will go on a run, even in this difficult fixture period. And he still has to be in your thoughts at least. And he's not suddenly a useless FPL option overnight. But in terms of going for Salah, Kieran Trippier, or Son over Haaland, that's definitely a valid debate. And you can go without Haaland. I considered it myself on the wildcard in Game Week 8. But I still think he's going to do extremely well in these more appeasing games like Brighton and Bournemouth at home, and even against the likes of United away. Look at the way United are defending and the mistakes Onana's making. Haaland can obviously score in that game, potentially even a brace. So I wouldn't put it past him. Ollie Watkins is going to be everyone's cup of tea. He's returning in every single game, it seems like, at this moment in time. And he also has some plum fixtures like Luton Town coming up very soon. And Aston Villa is one of those teams you want to maybe target. You don't need to have a triple up as I've gone for in this draft, but I think 2 is definitely viable. And if you had to pick, then Watkins over Diaby does look like the best way to go about it right now, but Diaby is also cheaper, and you can still go for Alvarez up front. And some of you may argue, why not go for Alvarez to cover Haaland? You can do that, and I think if you were to go about Haaland, I would highly recommend having Alvarez instead. I've also gone for a budget forward here in Archer, and to be fair, if you need extra money, maybe 0.1 or 0.2 million, you can go for Muniz or Mubama, but if possible, go for Archer. He's the best 4.5 million or below forward, and he'll do the job sitting on your bench pretty much every single week. So that's the 50-man squad. It's not perfect. There are some alternatives here and there, and some people watching might not be able to afford this 50-man squad. So let's head over to FPL.team, talk about the lineup, and also some possible downgrades so you can find the funds to build this team. This week I would go for Turner over Areola based on the fixture, and this was my thinking heading into Game Week 8 as well. I think Turner has a better chance of a clean sheet, but overall Areola is the better FPL asset. I've gone for a back three of Udogie, Burn and Matty Cash, all 5 midfielders starting, Son, Salah, Maddison, Diaby and Pedro Neto, and the front 2 of Haaland and Watkins. And the bench is also fairly solid with Areola, Gabriel, Joachim Andersen and Archer. And in terms of the captaincy, the algorithm does favour Salah in terms of expected points, but I think Haaland could be just as good, if not even better. And there is this early kickoff curse, which to be fair was debunked by Ollie Watkins in Game Week 7, but most times you see your most popular captaincy option in an early kickoff blanking or just not doing anywhere near as well as you would expect. But in terms of finding some possible downgrades to afford this team, one thing you could do, a very simple one, is Diaby to a Ward-Prowse, to name one particular example. But I think an even better one potentially could be Gordon, who is now back from suspension, and you might look at it and think, oh, 5.6, 5.7 million midfielders, but they are offering very good value at the moment. And other things you could do here and there would also include Haaland himself, of course, but I still think I would keep him on the wild card. Personally, that's the way I'm looking at it. I really back him to do well over the next 3 game weeks and beyond, even up until game week 16, which is when the fixtures continue to be pretty poor for Manchester City. And other things you can do is Gabriel down to a budget defender. You don't necessarily need all 5 defenders, being really solid options. But I think the most or the best way to do it is Joachim Andersen to a Mark Gay, because it's not a big difference ultimately. And I would have 1.1 million left in the bank. Actually, I'd have even more. I think I'd have 1.3 million. So FPL.team haven't updated all of the prices that I've kind of accumulated with the wildcard. So this team should be affordable to most people watching. So if you can't go for Diaby and Joachim Andersen, go for a cheap alternative in Mark Gay. And you can also go for Gordon in the heart of the midfield. Let me know what you think of this team and who is the best captaincy option in Game Week 9. That will be a very popular topic. I'm seeing a lot of love for Trippier, and that's rightly so. I think it's a great option. But you've also got Heung-min Son, Haaland and Salah. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting week for the captaincy, and we could have a lot of variance. But let's now go to the second draft, which has a few key changes. No Erling Haaland, and we've got some other amazing assets in the team in his place, and we're going to redistribute the funds in a completely different way. With the second team, I've gone for Areola starting and Johnston on the bench, and that's the key change between the sticks. Johnston in for Turner. I've also gone for Pedro Porro over Udogie, and if you can't afford this exact 50-man squad, you can go just back down to Udogie, and that's completely fine. I've also gone for Kieran Trippier and Matty Cash as the back 3. All 5 midfielders starting off Son, Salah, Maddison, Saka, and Jarrod Bowen. He is another key inclusion to this squad. The same goes for Bukayo Saka if he returns from injury. If he doesn't, you can go down to Martinelli, but my overall preference in the long term would definitely be Saka. His consistency has been unreal this season, and the underlying numbers are also very impressive to say the least. And a front two of Alvarez and Ollie Watkins, and the bench is stacked as well with Johnston, Burn, Gabriel and Archer. It would not surprise me if this bench scored 10 to 15 points and made for a decent bench boost, because Gabriel, Burn and Johnston could all do fairly well in Game Week 9, and the captaincy once again goes down to Salah and also Heung-min Son as the vice here. And in terms of expected points, this team has 62.8 in Game Week 9 and the first one has 63.6, so let me know which team do you prefer for Game Week 9 and also in the long term, which is the most important thing with a wildcard, of course. If Saka is back, there's a very good way of getting him into your squad, but if you're asking me right now which of these two drafts do I prefer, it's probably the first one. I do like the balance of the second one and you redistribute the funds really well, and right now I have to say Salah over Haaland is definitely the play, but I would rather have Haaland over Trippier, and you can cover Newcastle defensively with Dan Burn, or even going for two Newcastle defenders. Sven Botman could be back in Game Week 9. If not, I would be very surprised if he's not available for Game Week 10. And you've also got Fabian Schär as well, who offers a decent mid-price alternative. So let me know your thoughts on both of these teams. Which one do you prefer? And who are you looking to captain in Game Week 9? There's a lot more content headed your way. There could be a rating your team's video, like I said, if this video gets to over 200 likes. So be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. And also be sure to check my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and all the other links in the description below, like the Patreon and channel memberships, so you can get early access to my videos and also access to all my team reveals and much more. Be sure to check it out. Also the Discord server, where we've got a great FPL and UCL fantasy community, and the FPL League, where we have thousands of members already, and we're looking to grow it and potentially have the FPL winner at some stage this season. So thank you very much for watching this video. I highly appreciate it, and keep an eye out for all the other content for FPL and UCL fantasy over the next couple of weeks. There's a lot headed your way, and I'll see you next time.